Uh, Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, good afternoon to the virtual participants wherever you are. My name is Yalo Hango. I'm a policy analyst in the Ministry of Industrialization and Trade. I'm going to direct the proceedings and where I'm going to co-facilitate the workshop with Farid Strive. I think I've pronounced your name correctly. A country representative of Botswana USAID Trade Hub. Before I do the welcoming, let me just announce some housekeeping. For the participants in the room, whenever the nature calls, we are having the restroom facilities on my right hand for the ladies, and on my left hand for the gents. And we also have some outside for those who are not comfortable to come on front. We are having a Wi-Fi provided at the entrance and also on the flip chart on front here. The Wi-Fi password is just here. And during our break time, the tea is provided for those who are in the room, at the back of the room. And we are going to have a network session for the participants in the room after the workshop. May I take this opportunity to welcome you all at this event. The second, when we are going to host our second workshop on the AGOA capacity building workshop. Let me acknowledge the presence of the virtual participant. I think we are having some that joined us online. And if I may just do a piece of short introduction on our workshop today. You may be aware that the AGOA came into effect in 2000. AGOA stands for African Growth Opportunity Act. It's a non-reciprocal and unilateral trade preference arrangement which provides the duty-free market access for on the eligible products into the US from the sub-Saharan African country. The AGOA was enacted for 20 years. It has been effective for 20 years. And in 2015, it came to an end and extended for another 10 years, which now is going to end in September 2025. We still have like almost 4 years or less before the expiration of this trade preference arrangement. For Namibia to take an advantage of extension of the AGOA with the assistance of the USA Trade Hub Namibia, we have launched a AGOA utilization strategy so that our business community and the exporter can take this opportunity to increase their export products into the USA. In order to implement this strategy, we have established a national steering committee, which is taking a lead on the implementation for this utilization strategy. And whereas the Ministry of Trade, a secretariat and chairing the committee for the national committee, national AGOA committee, a national steering committee. For our workshop today, we are going to continue where we left on the 8th of July when we hosted our first workshop. And if I may do some recap on the on what we did on the first capacity building workshop, we had some presentation which were very much informative as we got some insight on the overview of the AGOA, on the entry market requirement into the USA, as also we, at the end of the workshop, we had some interesting moment. We had a networking event where the companies that were sponsored to pay a visit in South African, they were sponsored by the USA Trade Help so that they can learn from the other companies that are exporting to USA in Africa, in South Africa. At this event, we had some good moment as we learned from those participants on their experiences and the challenges they are experiencing in exporting or finding a market into the USA market. So for today, we are also going to, if I may maybe just touch on the agenda for the day. We are going to have some insightful presentation on the export requirements into the USA. So we are going to have experts from the Namibian customs and also from the US and customs border protections who are going to take us through on the customs procedures. During the workshop today, we are also going to have a visionary exercise where participants would have also an opportunity to see where we want Namibia to be, as well as we're gonna develop the roadmap just to determine where we want to go from here, so that we can implement the AGOA strategy. Lastly, also at the end of the workshop for the participant in the house, we are going to have a networking session. This will be just a general networking session just to recap and share some experience and information on the AGOA and how we would Namibia take us from here. Let me also now take this opportunity to give the participant a chance to introduce themselves so that we know who are with us in the room. We can start from this side. Do we have another mic, please? Okay.
Yes. Yes, good afternoon. My name is Elise Mawano. I'm from the Ministry of Industrialization and Trade. I'm from the Directorate of Industrial Development, Chief Economist. Thank you.
Good morning to the participants online. Good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Sedik Chombo from also.
Can I just interrupt? Maybe you can also tell us what are your expectations this workshop today? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Ayalo. My name is Sedik Chombo from Ministry of Industrialization and Trade. I'm a chief data analyst. Well, my expectations for this afternoon do not deviate from last week. Just want to know also what are the procedures in terms of custom procedures in order to access the US market. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Saya Shivandu from Namibia Revenue Agency, section Rules of Origin. And my expectation for today is to know more which procedure I'll have to follow if I want to send my consignment to USA. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Tandi Ambira from NAMRA. My expectations basically is that when we go out this evening from this venue, each and every one of us would know what is the way forward, what is required from the private entities, if and when they want to export. The same that customs, us as customs, perhaps if we have any uncertainties or queries with regard to certain procedures on the US side, that we would know what and how and when we should do that, and that we take it from here and grow the industry in terms of AGOA. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to our virtual participants. My name is Janet Chitaura. I'm a Chief Policy Analyst. I'm with the Ministry of Industrialization and Trade. I'm actually working on AGOA. So I'm actually part of the organizers of this workshop. And my expectation is that by the time we leave this room, most of our exporters are at least knows what are the requirements and also the customs procedures when they are exporting or sending their products to the US. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Ratu Sikunda from NRS Import and Export. My expectation is to come and find out how to enter the US market.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mika Munepapa. I'm coming from Ministry of Agriculture and Water and Land Reform. My expectation for today is just the export requirements to the US. So that's what I'm really interested in. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Maria Mirongwa from the Ministry of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform, Directorate of Planning and Business Development. My expectation today, okay, I joined the other meeting, so it's just the requirements, the procedures to penetrate the US market.
Good afternoon. My name is Suvi Plaikia. I'm from Namib Mills. My expectations I share with the previous speakers on learning more about how to ship goods to US.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jaco Diaga. I represent exclusive marble processing in Karabub. I hope to be equipped with enough knowledge that we can continue after this our transactions with our clients in the US without any stoppages, or at least with less stoppages.
Good afternoon, Eckhard Furch is my name. I'm representing the Namibian Organic Association. My expectation of today's workshop is, of course, getting clarity on some of the agenda points, some of the customs intricacies that our exporters might be facing, and then also learning from Botswana about some of their case studies to see how we can actually, or what we should expect when we do send any goods overseas.
Good afternoon. I'm an old lady, Calista van Rooyen. I'm just here to see what he is doing because most of the time he's busy and I just want to listen. Thank you.
Welcome. Good afternoon. My name is Lahia Mbinga. I'm from the NSI, Namibian Standard Institutions. So I'm basically here to understand and learn, or basically just to understand the requirement from the industry on how the NSI could be of an assistance with regards to standardizations. So that's the reason why I'm here. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Scholastica Chatu is my name from National Planning Commission, Policy Coordination Division. My expectation for today is basically just to find out or to learn more on how Namibia can effectively trade with the US through AGOA. And also maybe the do's and the don'ts, because sometimes we may be learning and at the end of the day, we do not really understand what are the do's, what are the don'ts, so that we can effectively trade or enter the US market. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Susanna Hoff. I'm representing the company Mediplants. I'm also expecting from that workshop to get even more clarity of the export into the US, and I'm quite interested to hear from the Botswanan partners, business people, how they have managed. So their case studies I'm very interested in. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Buti Hambira. I'm with the U.S. Embassy in the Economic and Commercial section. What we do is try to strengthen the economic and commercial relationships between the U.S. and Namibia, and I'm just here as an observer to learn what the U.S. Embassy can do better to better strengthen the economic ties between the two countries. I'm Namibian, by the way. Thank you.
Do you have some observers in the room?
Thank you very much. My name is Tanya Deringo, and I am the country representative for the USA Trade Hub for Namibia. And I'm really here to support the AGOA Steering Committee. And hopefully by the end of the day, we're able to have a roadmap of some sort that we can practically work with and work on as the steering committee. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's good to learn that everybody here, most of you would like just to learn on their procedures, how to send a consignment, how to get a market access into the US, and also you want to know how to do effective trade with the US as well. Those who are interested to learn experience from the Botswana side. It's good that we have Harit in the room. He's also an exporter. So we will really would like to know from, I know that is the right person to provide more information so that we can learn from the Botswana experience. We should just to say that we still have our virtual participants and we would like to acknowledge them. And I will mention then their names, then they will proceed to introduce themselves. We have Amta. Kindly just introduce yourself. Amta. Hopefully the network may be spared. Can we proceed to Ayesa Shueza?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm representing Kanoma Beauty. We trade in natural Namibian products. So I'm also here to learn and to understand how to export our products to the US. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. We have Francina Angola.
Very good afternoon to everyone. My name is Francina Angula and I am from the Meat Board of Namibia. I think this is the first meeting that we are joining or first workshop. So I'm really just looking forward to catching up on the discussions and hopefully finding out on new opportunities for our farmers in terms of exporting to the US. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have Tina. Do we take it that maybe it's network problem? Tina? Okay, we may proceed. Do we have T-O? T, kindly introduce yourself. Network problem. Thank you very much. Or do we have any more other online that probably I have not mentioned your name? Kindly just put on your mic, then you introduce yourself. Perfect. Thank you very much. I'm just looking at our attendees that we are having the cosmetic industry. We are having participants from the agriculture, from the Namibia Organic Association. We are having the Standard Institution, as well as the marbles. I think, yes, we can, we are even not 100% presented. I think we have at least a good number of the participants. I'm not the only one who is facilitating this event. Let me give this opportunity to Harit so he can introduce us on the next point. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Yola. Quick one. I was not asked to introduce myself, but I will introduce myself and my expectations. I'm the USA Trade Hub County Representative for Botswana. And I happen to be in business myself as well. So for you guys who are exporting or wanting to export, sometimes we can cry together or maybe laugh together when we see the money flowing in. Just to let you know, we have a couple of technical presentations scheduled for the 28th of June when the Malawi event is taking place. And there are two technical presentations on how AGOA works. One of them is by Mary Gounder, who's one of the USA Trade persons, and she's an expert in terms of export procedures, export process, all the documentation you need to have in place, and also Incoterms. Incoterms is really gives you something, gives you key information about how your contract is and what are your obligations. So it's very good to know, to have that kind of information. Another presentation which will take place on the 28th of June will be by Michael Ford of BDP International. And that is from the US side in terms of AGOA import procedures. So these are two technical presentations which won't be here today, but will be on the 28th of June. All the people participating here will get a link and I think also the people attending virtually should be able to get that link so that they can attend these technical workshops as well. Yeah, in terms of expectations, I think it's important. USA Trade Hub, it's a project. What happens with the project? It comes and it goes. It means that in a couple of, actually end of this month, we are officially closing active implementation. So it's very important that the work Tanya and her team and the USA Trade Hub team has been doing in Namibia is kind of anchored, it's kind of, companies can find it somewhere. So I think Tanya already mentioned it. Part of the work we want to do today is to see how can we chart a way forward for the AGOA steering committee to see how they can still support ongoing AGOA development and AGOA exports. So I think that's part of the program today. And I think that's very important. I mean, at the end of the day, we as USA Trade Hub, we are as good as what we leave behind. And the AGOA steering committee is in a way the entity which should be able to hold up quite a lot of the information and the processes which we have been working on. So that's part of the exercise today. We still have a couple of technical presentations as well. But for now, I think I want to start with lessons learned from Botswana. We are going to be quite strict on timekeeping. The problem with time, the problem with the clock, just doesn't stop ticking. So Tanya is a very strong timekeeper. She will give you a yellow card if you talk too much, and a red card if now you're out of the game. So that we will do. I think I will start with my presentation. And again, I hope I'm not going to be long. Okay. I'm really not going to talk very long, but just to give you a couple of examples of, I'll give you a couple of examples of Botswana companies who are actually exporting or in the process of exporting to the US under AGOA. It's the last one. Yeah, so we've got 4 companies. Mahunga Craft, which is really a small SME. KGK Jewelry, which is actually a very big company. Flowtech, which is a sizable company. We also got DLG Naturals. Where do I press up? Okay, Mahunga Craft. Mahunga Craft is really a small company, as an SME company. They producing a couple of sauces, specifically Marula hot sauce. You people in Namibia, you know Marula just as good as we know it in Botswana. So they've actually made some very niche product, which is a Marula hot sauce. They're already selling it into Botswana and started exporting some to South Africa as well. They have managed to list on Amazon with some support by USA Trade Hub. So it is now being sold in the US on Amazon. They have managed to comply with issues about exporting food products. I think last week I attended a meeting virtually. If you see the steps you have to follow when you export food products, they're quite comprehensive. So in terms of the CEO, their labeling, they've actually managed. They've already actually found some sales outside Amazon in the US as well. Currently, they're in the Fancy Food Show in New York as part of an African delegation promoting their products. So again, and they're actually in the process of acquiring a proper distributor in the US. Now, what is the lessons here? The lessons is that, number one, they're producing a niche product. And I think for many of us, if we want to export to the US, the first thing, you really have to be competitive. You need to have a product where you can compete on price, on quality, on maybe something special. And in a way, that's what they have here. For them, exporting to the US is actually a major step in terms of taking the company forward in terms of profitability, in terms of growing much bigger. At the moment, I think they employ about less than 10 people. I have to say that if I look at the owners, and these are, I would say, indigenous Botswana, these are the type of people our countries they need. This is where development will take place. So you have people who are very committed, and it is not an easy process. It's very easy for me to stand here and say, hey, go and export to the US. It's not easy. I don't want to give you that impression. But at the same time, if you have a product which you think you can make it work, and if you have the energy and the perseverance to actually follow through, and if you get some support from within, in this case, Namibia, from the right agencies, it can be government, it can be a producer association, things could be possible. So in this case, USA Trade Up, for instance, supported them with the Amazon listing. There's a couple of other things we are doing as well. But like at the moment in Botswana, the whole issue about supporting companies to list on Amazon, actually that part of the program is now being taken over in Botswana by the Botswana Investment and Trade Center. So they're actually continuing that aspect of the program. And again, that's what we want to see. Okay, then KGK Jury. I'm not sure how I'm doing with my time. I haven't seen a yellow card yet. So it's already a major company in terms of diamond cutting and polishing. And of course, you know, Botswana is the biggest exporter of diamonds in the world, at least in value. Second one is Russia, but we don't want to talk about Russia nowadays. So, so they have actually taken an investment decision to set alongside their diamond polishing and cutting enterprise to set up a jewelry production unit. And we expect their first exports to actually take place this year in August. They expect their projection is to have over 300 employees within the next 1.5 years. If you ask me what are the lessons, this is a major company. They actually originate out of India. But the fact that they will use diamonds from Botswana, produce them in Botswana, will give them the confidence that they can meet the certificate of origin requirements. We have also worked with them on the HS codes that they're actually eligible for AGOA. It actually gives them a 4 to 5% competitive edge if they produce these diamonds, for instance, in India or in Belgium. So again, in this case, AGOA has the potential to make a company to make that investment decision. So that's KGK Jewelry. Flowtech, it's a major company in Botswana producing plastic pipes, irrigation equipment, and fittings. They've got factories in Botswana and South Africa. They're actually reviewing an investment decision to set up a factory in South Africa, in Durban, close to the harbor, to produce plastic products for the US market. Key thing for them to make that decision is that it's eligible under AGOA. It gives them that 4 or 5% edge in terms of duty. And you think 4 or 5% is maybe not much. That 4 or 5% comes on top of your profit. If you're working with a margin of 10% and you add another 5%, is 50% extra profit. So AGOA can make a real difference. ELG Naturals, a company producing marula oil, organically certified. They're They have now been exporting under the AGOA regime for a number of years. They have got a US-based subsidiary through which they do their sales. Again, I think is what I already mentioned. It's a product which is niche. Advantage here, if they sell their marula oil, it is sold as a raw material. The whole shopping list of food safety issues basically becomes a lot shorter. Yeah, for them, the US export sales is a major revenue. I think also if you look, then where does the marula come from? It comes from harvesters. 80% of the harvest are rural women. So actually, some of these products have a multiplier effect in terms of what it does for our people out in the rural areas. We have supported them with organic certification. They just recertified a week ago. And again, the owners do understand that export development, it's not a very simple process. But at the same time, it is a process which can make a company to really move from A to B. I'm sure it's the last one. Okay, I don't know if there's any questions. And I would say if you are in the audience, virtual audience, there's always a chat box. You can put in a question there. Tanya is keeping an eye on it. I'm just looking at our time. Okay, yeah, that's why I didn't get even a yellow card. Okay.
This last company that you presented, DLG Naturals, I found it quite interesting that they actually export their raw product and not label it. It's not a value-added product. And it's also used for the cosmetic sector. So it does not underlie the FDA regulations for food and drink. I think that's really something that Namibia can learn from. I just really want to emphasize this for people that considering to, because we have in Namibia, we have quite a number of marula oil producers already as well.
Yeah, and I would say you probably don't just have marula oil. You probably have another couple of unique oils, whether it's mongongo or tsemenia, or so again, I think the idea is always to add as much value as possible to a product, but you also have to be realistic. I'll talk from personal experience. I export devil's claw to Europe, and I've got people from the government asking me, why don't you do what they do in Europe, extract the hypocrisite? But the issue in terms of investment, making sure you get a food safety certified company in place, making sure you get the market, all these things, it's not a simple decision. To me, at the end of the day, what we are after is trying to export our products and add as much value as possible. But like I think as a business person has to look for making money. But making money, you have to balance it with the risks you want to take for your business. The moment you start investing in sophisticated production facilities, especially when you're not secured of a market, yeah, you're exposing yourself a lot. On top of that, you might not have the money. So, yes.
Yes, so I just wanted to find out in these examples, do the producers have like a range of products, or can you enter the market with just one SKU?
I'll give you an example for DLG. DLG actually does do other oils as well. They do baobab oil, they do mongongo oil, they do tsemenia oil, but marula oil is their major export, and that's also the one they actually have organically certified. Again, organic certification, I think we have to be careful. If it really helps you to access a market which you wouldn't access otherwise, or you're able to generate a better price, it makes a lot of sense. But again, organic certification, it's not, it's not mahala. It's not coming for free. You have to invest in paying extra money to your harvesters, more administration, change some stuff in your factory. And again, all that you have to put against what is my expected additional income. But so the answer to your question is it can be one product, but in a way, every business has its own, let's say, product range and what they can do. I think, the examples I gave you is quite a wide range. We have a very small company, just employing less than 10 people. We have which is already exporting. We have a big company like KGK, which is now jewelry. And so there is a range of companies. And the key thing is, how do we support these companies to actually make use of the AGOA initiative or benefits? And I think what the people we have in the room, on the one hand, we have a good number of people coming from the steering committee or from government agencies, but we also have a number of people coming from private sector. And the key thing to me is they need to meet each other and help each other.
Thank you. It is Robert from NTF, that is Namibia Trade Forum. Maybe because I met you in the middle of your presentation, the thing that I didn't hear coming out is that in terms of these companies that are already exporting in Botswana.
Sorry, no. Not a good facilitator here at the moment, but continue. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, is one thing that I didn't hear is how is the government assisting them in terms of subsidizing? And the second one is access to the market. How are they interconnected so that these people should be able to have that information to be on the plate so that once they know, once we produce, there's access to the market, there's subsidy which is provided by the government. How is that put in place? Thank you.
Okay. Every product is different, I would say. But at the end of the day, I think where government plays a very critical role is sometimes assisting them in terms of helping them to find markets. And if you are in business, unless you have found a market for your product, you're kind of wasting your time. Yeah, you can as well put a boat on the land and try to row. So the bottom line is that finding a market is key, and this is where government can help. Again, in Botswana, we have a couple of agencies who support businesses in finding markets. We have a couple of agencies who actually can support businesses in getting them their certification right, getting their documents in place. I would say we also always need certain documentation from government in case of always a certificate of origin, and that is to be done, is to be get through, in Botswana's case, BURS, the Botswana United Revenue Service. Here we have an agency in Namibia. I would say subsidies in principle, if you are exporting, you might need support in getting a product development going. You might need support in getting your first consignment going. But for God's sake, we are in business. Yeah. So subsidies to produce, subsidies to export. I always say that if you are a businessman and you run a business, you are expected to hold up your own trousers. If the government trousers and the subsidy falls away, the trousers falls down. Might not be a pretty sight. So I would say subsidies, yeah, I want to be very clear. If it comes to supporting companies to alleviate certain obstacles, government has a big role to play. But long-term subsidies in terms of helping them with production costs, I mean, business is business. If the business case is not there, and that's why I started from the beginning saying, you must be competitive. Your product must be able to compete. Whether it is meat from Meatco, whether it is marble, whether it is marula oil, and whether it is certain crafts. But that is always the key. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but I tried. I don't know if I've got my red card now. So I got my red card. Again, look, we are here, even we do have a network session afterwards. We can always talk later one-on-one. I just want to see if we can proceed with the program. The next part of the program is called visioning exercise. Visioning of eyes, so we can all see. But in this case, we want to give each of the participants to vision what success in terms of AGOA development would look like for them. Now, if you are a company, it might be quite easy. But even if you are a support agency, you might be able to report to your boss, this quarter we exported so much product under AGOA. So basically, you are each going to be given an A4 sheet. I just want you to, actually, whether you want to close your eyes or you don't want to close your eyes, but I want you to look for yourself and say, for me, for AGOA to actually work for my company or for my organization or for my entity, this is how I look that AGOA is actually helping me, is a success. So it's not going to be a long exercise. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to think and write something down. And you could also draw a picture. Maybe you want to draw a picture of a container loaded on a boat. Or in my case, my containers are stuck in Joburg because of the floods in Durban. So don't put a container, I might get a bit of a headache. But all I'm saying, you can draw a picture or explain and I'm going to give you just 3-4 minutes to write something down. I'm going to ask some of you to briefly present, but I also want you to keep that sheet with you, because later on this afternoon, when we are going to look at opportunities and where we see the role of the steering committee, I want you to take that back. What can we actually get from them? I am not sure if I have explained myself well. Okay. You are from which company? From? What do you do? Yeah. So for you as a company, how would success in terms of AGOA look like? In other words, for you as a company, in 2 years from now, where would you want to be? You can draw a picture or write a couple of lines. You could say that in 2024, I'm exporting this amount of money to the US. Or you could draw yourself, I always say, big fat Mercedes. Now I'm driving a Mercedes because now I've exported under AGOA. But it is really, I want you to look for yourself as a company. What can AGOA give me access to the market in the US in terms of my company development? But we're not all running companies. Some of us are with the ministries. But what would it mean for the ministry to say we actually supported so many companies get a Tandy, the certificate of origin? Or we supported so many companies to help them to access markets. So I'm not going to say what you should say, but I just want to know is my explanation clearer now? Yeah, I speak also a Dutch English maybe, so my English is not so good. Is anybody else not clear? I'm going to give you just 3 minutes, and then I'm going to ask a couple of you to briefly say what your vision of success would be. And again, I always say, this is not a church, so don't write long stories, no Bibles. In a few sentences or a few pictures, this is what I'm looking for. Thanks. And to be frank, even people in the virtual audience, you can put on the chat box, this is what AGOA would mean for me. And we have our referee. She can also at least record, but put it in your mind so that when we go back this afternoon, you have something also to put a reference to. I always say, and I said the same thing this morning when we met the steering committee, I always say that if you don't know where you want to go to, any road is good. So if I'm in Gaborone, if I go to Francistown up north, I don't know where I'm going, it's still good. But so really, let's see somewhere where we would like to be. We might not get there tomorrow, but at least we have an idea where we want to be.
So there's 5 minutes left for the drawing. And we have 10 minutes for
Okay, let's start. Oh, Philomena, you pass the microphone around. Yeah, briefly explain what your vision of success would be for AGOA, and also briefly again repeat your organization or company.
Okay, the company I work for is Namibia Trade Forum, and sorry, what we do there is we assist in the dialogue as a bridge between the private sector and the government in terms of trade and also policy issues. Okay, this will be a little bit in the terms of like I'm advising now the company. So my first point will be, I look back in terms of Ramatex when they were still exporting clothes to the USA using the AGOA agreement. We are saying it will be better to advise now the entities who are also trying to venture into that, to be able to still use that agreement, be able to sell clothes, because our clothing or either the sale of cloth from Namibia to the US market, immediately when Ramatex failed, then it was cut off, it went back to zero. So it's better to advise now the upcoming retailers to revive that so that they can still benefit using the AGOA agreement.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's go see some cosmetics. No, okay. You go first. Yes, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm from the Directorate of Planning and Business Development. We are responsible for seeking markets for our agricultural products. Okay, this is my second time to actually attend to these workshops on AGOA. I find it very interesting. Maybe my colleagues, there was another colleague who came for the others. I'm not sure. So my interest was actually on the beef, as an agricultural product. When I was here for the previous workshop, my colleague from the Ministry of Trade presented some statistics on trade statistics for 2021, where beef was not part of these exported products. So I'm curious, and I want to know more on what happened. But my colleague from MIDCO was here during the time of the networking. He briefed a bit on why there was no success. There was inspection done, and then something was detected, I think a bacteria or something. So my vision is actually to see how that can be solved in the future, so that we are able to export to the US market.
Okay, that's a good vision. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon. Yes, I actually represent NMI Group, so Namib Mills Group of companies. We have 3 sister companies, Namib Mills, Namib Poultry Industries, and Feedmaster. We are in food manufacturing. So success in terms of AGOA for me would be in line with our vision, which is feeding the nation. So I'm actually glad that I'm not an artist, but I drew a new factory. So for me, it would be something to see us double our employment force in terms of a new factory, which could then produce for the US markets. And then I also drew in the logistics network, and then a small scale farmer, which I don't know, the crop, I was trying to make a crop of mahango and sorghum, and a female farmer, of course. So that would be then for us the success, how it would look like for the whole country and our group of companies.
Thank you very much. Oh, now since once you are drawing, you get photographed here. Who's next? Who would like to?
Okay, thank you. My name is Elijah. I'm from NTF. I'm together with my colleague there. So what would it mean for AGOA to be successful? Okay, for me, what I have in mind is when we have a success in this agreement, I think the end result will be economic growth. And where will it come from? I think it will be coming from mostly the private sector. Of course, we help the private sector to do their business. Then we are also looking at businesses that are run by women and the youth. Also the small SMEs that are just, starting up. So if you help those ones, you'll find that the whole entire value chain, as you said earlier, that there is a rippling effect that will go throughout the community. So we are also going to witness issues of reinvestment in other different sectors, which will create a lot of employment and subsequently contributing towards the attainment of our famous Vision 2030. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think, to be frank, and that's the right way. It is, to me, it's private sector exporting, but they can't do it on their own. This is where we have steering committee, agencies here to see how they can actually play into that. Yes, who's next? Yes.
Thank you. I'm also I'm not good at drawing as well. But I drew a picture of myself working in a US, shop buying num grapes. Yeah, that's a picture that I draw. And I think I had two expectation rather from the AGOA that will indicate the success of AGOA. So the first one, the second one was basically they say numbers don't lie. And as soon as numbers are increasing, definitely you see the success. So of course, if for instance, maybe in 2022, there are only 5 companies that are exporting to the US market. And then I'm expecting maybe perhaps in 2025, I would love to see maybe when one is tabulating or doing some analysis, I would love to see at least maybe 15 companies that have already accessed the US market under the AGOA. And not only companies growing, but also the products that have got professional benefits through the AGOA also accessing the US market. Thank you.
Thanks. Who's next? Let me ask Michael. No. Go ahead, please.
Oh, okay. Yes, for me, in addition to what my colleague has also indicated, I'm from the Ministry of Industrialization and Trade, Directorate of Industrial Development. For me, success story from the AGOA would be to see a shipment of our craft work as home decor that will be exported to the US market, as this is also a product, I think, under preferences when it comes to the AGOA. The other success story, in addition to what the others have indicated, is I would love to see us getting support, technical support in terms of our table grapes to be able to access the US market. Because as of now, to my knowledge, is that there are some few SPS issues that actually hinder the access of these table grapes to enter the US market. These are good products. We have seen that in the EU, they are able to be exported. So these are, it's a product of potential that can also enter the US market. And I think the other one would be, in addition to the example of all the lessons from Botswana, would be to also see our jewelry from Namibia being produced from the semi-precious stone that actually also can access the US market. Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't come here for Botswana to get more competition, but but I mean, at the end of the day, we are all in Africa. We have to see how we can help each other and learn from each other.
Yes. For me, being working for the ministry as a focal point on AGOA activities and steer the AGOA National Steering Committee, I would like to see at least 2 companies who never exported to the US taking up the market into the US. Not like SADC who want like 15 companies. I know it might be possible, but I don't know. Yeah, at least the first company from the table grape and second company could on the marble stone could at least send 2 consignment by the end of this extension 2025. That's how I would like to see.
Thank you, Yola. Who's next?
By success, we would like to see the AGOA, there's also the government to facilitate us with the trade fairs and exhibitions. Facilitate us with the trade fairs, information and exhibitions facilities.
Where are you from again?
NRS, Import and Export Agency.
Okay.
So that we can get the access to the market.
So you want to go and travel to New York?
Then you see that they don't know. What I'm trying to say, the government, you know, they got access to the facilities and the informations easier than myself, you know, to travel from here to go there.
Okay. Next.
Yes, I'm from the Namibian Standard Institution. We provide standardization and conformity assessment services to ensure the health and safety of consumer protection and environment. The implementation of AGOA to me, I'm looking at, I didn't even attempt to draw, first of all, I'm very bad. However, in my head, I'm looking at multiple companies that are certified against standard requirement. I understand there is HACCP requirement, ISO 9001, which is quality management system, and then good manufacturing practices as part of the requirement to export. So in my head is looking or seeing organizations and companies certified against those standards to be able to export, which at the end of the day will increase our GDP, more jobs, better living conditions. And to the NSI, of course, will definitely then increase the standard sales. We see a lot of training because then for one to understand and to implement a standard, they need to be trained for them to implement those requirements. So it's more standard sales, standard training, and then also increase revenue. At the end of the day is to also increase standardization awareness, because then when organizations understand the requirement of HACCP, they spread, its word of mouth is very important. They therefore then spread standardization also within Namibia, and better implementation of the national quality infrastructure as well as the national quality policy to be in short.
Thank you very much. Yeah, the old lady was just checking on what he's doing, so it's good. Okay, I got.
Yeah, I better perform proper now. On my page, I've got 5 main topics that I would like to see materialize in future. First of all, establish a functioning value chain for organic beef for export. And in this realm, I also would like to see a continuation of the certification scheme that AGOA was assisting or willing to assist with this during this last cycle, the 60% assistance fee. Organic producers have to go through a 2-year conversion period. For the US, it's actually 3 years. So there is a conversion period where there is cost, but no income and benefit out of organic certification. Secondly, increasing the number of organic producers who are willing to export. So that's my job, and that of the Organic Association. Then thirdly, establish a help desk to assist willing exporters through the paperwork and logistics hurdles, which are considerable. The workshops assist us with that, but possibly have somebody dedicated with at a help desk to assist us with that. then the gentleman here up front said it already. Get business-to-business engagement started to explore opportunities, connecting us to the markets overseas. And it doesn't need to be a trip to New York. I think that can happen otherwise. There can be expressions of interest from the US and expressions of opportunities from Namibia. And lastly, see that some of our current horticulture exports, Yalu has mentioned the grapes, that these do not have to take the detour through our southern neighbor, but actually can be exported directly. Of course, it also takes some logistics hurdles that need to be taken on. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jaco.
Afternoon, everybody. As I said earlier, my name is Jaco de Jager. I represent actually two companies. One company being a mining company, Namibia Marble and Granite, and the other company is a marble processing company, which is Exclusive Marble Processing. Now, for 35 years, we've been exporting rough marble blocks overseas, and we've now started our own factory in 2020. So what we've learned that COVID-19 has given us is that short-term plans can bring you into your long-term plans. So my vision is basically, as Mr. Chombo said, figures. At the moment, we are exporting an average of 5 containers to America, and I would like to see that increase to 20 in the next 2 years. From there on, we will build and set our next goals for the next 2 years.
Thank you. I think I've got a red card. I just wanted to see if I explained it very well. So I want to give you the last one. Okay, go ahead, please.
I also would like to, on my drawing, you can see it, I do a lot of greenhouses because that's what I would like to see, an increased export to the US with AGOA giving us the competitive edge to do so. Once you have established your market there through a nice competitive entry, our products are good enough to stay there, but that first lot of getting in would be the important one.
Thank you very much. I think, to be frank, we've got quite some, I think we're all on the same wavelength. I think the private companies very much want to see exports. I think the support agencies very much like to see how they can support. In a way, companies exporting is also the success of support agencies. It's nice to report now Namibia has exported so many tons of meat, organic meat. So I think we are all in the same ship. At the end of the day, what we need, I always say the same in Botswana, what we need to create more employment, we need to create more opportunities, we need to generate wealth. And to be frank, nobody's going to do it for us. It's us. So it's us to help each other. And now it looks like I'm going to run for politics, but I am not. Okay, so I think we can go to the next. Oh, yes, Janet.
I wanted to add that since I'm also from the Ministry of Trade, coordinating AGOA activities at the ministry, I would like to see more product exported to the US. I would like to see beef, leather, cosmetic, fish, date, grapes, oil, craft, jewelry exported to the US, where you will be able to see our fish and our beef in restaurants, and some leather can be used for the cars factory, and also like the dates and the grapes. They can also be seen in the supermarkets. And then we can also export some craft that people can use for decors in their home. Because with each agreement, when you are coming to the end of the implementation of an agreement, when we have to report at the ministry, usually you are expected to report in terms of how the country have utilized that agreement. And mainly you look at the products that you have exported during that period since the agreement was put in place. So that's what I would actually want to see, because I would like to report some success at the end of 2025, because this is actually going to contribute to jobs creation and also reduction of poverty. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I've gone 5 minutes over time, which is not good, but now I'm going to introduce the next speaker. Thandi, are you ready? So Thandi is the Deputy Director of the Namibia Revenue Agency, and she is going to talk about documentation, including certificate of origin. I'm handing over to you, Thandi.
Good afternoon once again. That's not the picture I shared, ne? I think that picture was taken when I was busy giving a statement on something that I'm not liked about. So I do not know who used this picture. Is my presentation? So basically what I will do is I'll take you through the processes if and when one wants to export goods from Namibia under AGOA. Also, what is required in terms of you being registered as an exporter, where you can find certain information. Basically that is what I'm going to do. I'm just waiting for them to, okay. Okay, in terms of the overview, I'll take you through our legislative framework because, I mean, we need to be guided by something if we want to carry out our functions. I would cover the aspect of requirements for export. I'll also deal with the issue of conditions for certification and registration at customs. Although registration takes place at BIPA, there's also a portion that takes place at customs. And then where and how to obtain your certificate of origin when you are exporting, and also to share with you the values of goods that have been exported to the United States, not necessarily under AGOA per se, but from Namibia to the United States. And then I'll lastly cover the way forward. Now, in terms of our legislation, we are governed by the NAMRA Act. We are equally governed by the Customs and Excise Act. Obviously, most companies that export would have to be registered through BIPA, and so we consider that as well in our day-to-day actions. There's the Import and Export Control Act. There is then also the AGOA Act, and then apart from the AGOA Act, the WCO have certain guidelines in terms of the conformity to rules of origin. Equally so the World Trade Organization, because in as much as we say a good something is originating from Namibia, there are certain standards that it should subscribe to in order to qualify. Now, in terms of requirements for export, like I alluded to before, the company must be registered with BIPA. That proof must be submitted. The company should as well have an operating office or a business within Namibia, because for us to certify, we need to know who we are dealing with. And most importantly, that ties with the aspect of the factory verification visits that we as customs will undertake. The exporter will have to submit an application under AGOA, but you would see that I have a slash, a particular agreement or AGOA, because sometimes some exports would be covered just with a general system of preference certificate of origin. So the exporter then would need to submit that application to customs and be registered with customs in order to export. That ties with the second point. And then in as much as we want to export, we need to submit a list of the goods because I think the lady said they are in the food industry. They have number mills, they have chicken, they have whatever. So whenever you want to export, you need to give a list of, is it textile that you want to export? Is it minerals? Is it foodstuff? Is it whatever? And even if it's foodstuff, there are different commodities. So we need to be aware of what commodities it is that we want to then export. Then what is essential here is that you need to state the origin criteria of the goods that you want to export. Why that is necessary is even though something is of a Namibian origin, if I have to cite fish, for instance, we all know that, yes, we do have fish and we do export fish. But then under that, there are certain requirements that, for instance, a vessel must fly under a Namibian flag. A certain percentage of the crew members must be Namibian nationals, and also the territorial waters within which the fish was caught. So the aspect of rules of origin plays an important role. We might as well say that, textile, no, say sugar is of a Namibian origin, but yet that particular component was just packaged here. And in terms of the governing rules of origin, packaging and labeling does not constitute originality. So that is then very important to state the origin criteria, whether the goods are wholly obtained, like your beef, for instance, would be wholly obtained, whether there's a transformation in terms of the product that is exported. Now with transformation, the aspect of the percentage that was added, the value addition, would also then play an important part. We also need to know the list of raw materials that you are using. Did you source it locally? Did you source it within the region? Did you perhaps source it from the US? Because, for instance, if you take the textile, if you want to export textile under AGOA, you need to source your textile from within the region, or the raw material should also come from the US, manufactured here and then sent out. Then you also do qualify. So that is why we need to know where you source your raw materials from. And you need to provide documentary proof in terms of where you actually sourced this raw material. It's a different aspect when, for instance, one has to take the marble, for instance, because that is something that is extracted from Namibia. Then again, we need to carry out a factory verification visit, because it's easy to come to us as customs and say, I want to export an X product from Namibia. It was made in Namibia. But it is also very much essential for us to physically go to the premises and verify the process, from the inception or from the starting point until the finishing product. And we need to verify the entire process to see that indeed this product was manufactured within this factory that is stating that they actually want to export that commodity. Now the conditions, basically you would see that there is a duplication in what I alluded to earlier. Now, when you have to register for customs, with customs actually, you would also see that under the AGOA export registration, there is a requirement that you need to be registered with customs, in as much as BIPA would register you. For us to issue a certificate of origin, you need to be registered with customs, either as an exporter, either as a manufacturer, but you need to be registered with us. So for that, we'll go back first, your company registration with BIPA. Then you need to give us a company profile. In the event that there is a requirement for an export permit, because not all commodities require export permit, but then you would find instances where it is required. especially where it's indicated in the Import and Export Control Act. So that should then also be submitted. And for mining especially, you need to prove the right of holding. Do you have the right to that product that you actually want to export? Proof of identity. And we want to collect revenue. So it's essential that we know that you are in good standing with NAMRA in terms of paying your taxes, filing your tax returns. That plays an important part as well. In certain instances, we might require the register of shareholders. It is not compulsory, but in certain instances. And then also to give us details of your manufacturing process, just outline the different steps that a certain product has to undergo to have that final product. And what we also have as a requirement is a sample of the product that you so want to export. Obviously, there are some that we might not take and keep in the office. For instance, like diamonds, we would not have them in our office, but we would want to see samples of your products. The number of employees, like I alluded to earlier, for certain origin criteria, we need to know how many staff members were actually involved in the making of that particular product. Because in as much as you would say it's a Namibian product, but then if it is people from Afghanistan, the whole factory, the whole process, everything is somebody from another country, and yet you are saying it is a Namibian product. Those are also issues that we take cognizance of. And then again, the source of raw material. And am I over? Sorry, I'll be faster. Yeah, when you export, the certificates of origin are basically endorsed at all the regional offices. Officers must be authorized to endorse these certificates. And what we do in this instance, we have a list of officers that are authorized. These signatures are then sent to the various customs administrations. It is kept there just to ensure that if I do not have the mandate to sign, I then do not sign. And mind you, if and when there is a query, the other authorities, even the US, would come back and say, this thing was signed by Atandi. Is she authorized to sign? And we also sent specimens of the signatures to the exporting countries. It is also important that the cargo is sealed after verification, and make sure that your certificate of origin is actually endorsed, it's stamped, and it's signed. Because if it's not signed by customs, it means it was not verified and we have not authorized that export. We have had instances where goods were shipped out of Namibia into country X. Once the goods arrive there, we then receive queries to say, this is a Namibian product. Can you authenticate? Can you verify? But then it's difficult for us to then actually say, although we know we have those commodities within Namibia, to say, yes, it is a Namibian product because we have not verified that and we have not seen that. So that is very, very important. In the event of diamonds, for instance, because that's the commodity that is exported the most, it's not only customs that verifies that process. Yes, customs is involved, but we have the National Protection Resources Unit, and then we have Mines and Energy that would certify before we can actually then finalize the certification process. Those are the export requirements. In terms of documents, you need the customs, the SAT 500, you need an invoice, you need an export permit, if and when required, the rules of origin certificate, and then you need your transport documents, be it an airway bill, a seaway bill, a bill of lading, or a road transport manifest. Those are various forms. I'll skip through that. That's a GSP form. That's a textile certificate of origin under AGOA. And That's the visa application for under AGOA. And that's the specimen stamp. And this stamp, mind you, is only required if and when you are exporting textiles. For other commodities, it's not needed. Now, just quickly on the export values to the US. In 2014, we had 368 billion that was exported. 2015, it's 527 billion. 2016, 950 billion. And so it escalated. But then due to COVID, you would see that to 2020, there was a downward trend, which is obvious. 2021, again, it went up. And the statistics for 2020 only covers the period from 1st of April until now. And just to highlight that, I think I've mentioned that before, that diamonds is the commodity that is exported the most, either processed or rough, but it is the commodity that we are exporting the most. There are miscellaneous articles or commodities, and one would also see that there's a lot of craft that is exported, but in terms of value, the value is slightly low. In terms of the way forward, where do we want to see ourselves as customs and everybody in the room? For us to make a success of AGOA, there is a need, and really an urgent need, for collaboration and cohesion with all the stakeholders. I mean, I've listed them all, and in case I have left any, it was not intentional, but at least you are covered under the all stakeholders. Yeah, and I've also noticed that in terms of the committee, the reference committee for AGOA, that customs was not included. And I think it's essential that customs is part of that committee, because when I read through the book, I saw inland revenue. Now, inland revenue really does not deal with any exports or imports for that matter. I do understand that EPAS is covered, but then when it comes to the implementation, it would be customs. So in that sense, I would think that it's really essential for customs to play a part. And going forward as well, really there is, this platform is I mean, it's evident that we need information sharing, we need to collaborate. And if one can from here even have bigger engagements where the probable exporters are informed, we develop leaflets, we open platforms to ensure that we facilitate trade, to ensure that whoever has a product that can make it into the US market actually makes it. With that, I thank you, and I'm sorry for stealing your time. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Thandi. I think just to be clear, whatever presentations are put, we will make them available. Some of the information I think is very important, like the information Thandi provided in terms of getting that certificate of origin. We will now go to the next presentations, and then we'll have some discussions where both Thandi and the next speaker can be asked questions. I'm introducing Bryant McRae, U.S. Custom and Border Protection Attaché. I believe he's been hanging on the program for some time. Bryant, can we hand over to you?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Colleagues, this is Bryant McRae calling in from Pretoria, South Africa, to join your conference. Thank you very much, U.S. Aid Trade Hub and team for calling me and asking me to conduct a presentation. I've worked with this team before, and this work is extremely important. So for those that are not speed readers, I'll just condense those few sentences there in front of you to let you know that I am the Customs and Border Protection Attaché working here at the U.S. Embassy in South Africa, in Pretoria. I've been here for approximately 4 years now, and part of my duties include 16 countries in the region, which includes Namibia. Not being aware of who's in the audience, if I've met you before, hello again. If I haven't met you, look forward to working with you in the future. But I'm here, and I'm an asset for you all to use when and if there are questions related to importations into the United States. And so my talk today really has to do with that process and why it's so important for you to consider the clearance process into the United States when you're making your decisions about importations or exportations from here that are going to the U.S. Because failure to include time for potential examination and some of the requirements that might come up as a result of the importation can delay your shipment. And in some cases, it could be damaged, destroyed, or it just might, something else might happen with it that failure to plan would not be a good thing. So I've been in the region for about 4 years now, and one of the challenges that I see about U.S. shipping into the U.S. market has a lot to do with not understanding our systems and the requirements for entrance and clearance into the United States. One of the things that I can share with you for sure is the fact that if you are a first-time importer into the United States, you will be examined. Your merchandise will be scrutinized, and our officers and agents will take a close look at that merchandise to make sure that it meets U.S. requirements in the same way that I expect that merchandise being shipped into Namibia would be required to meet, certain standards and comply with our laws. And so the most important thing is for you to plan for that examination process, and you plan for that by hiring folks that are going to be responsible for helping you to enter and clear into the commerce of the United States. And so for us, usually there are customs brokers on the U.S. side that would be responsible for entering and clearing your paperwork through U.S. Customs. Now, that paperwork alone is not alone an indication that your merchandise will be cleared without examination, because back to what I said a moment ago, if you're a first-time importer, you will be examined. But the paperwork will serve as a methodology to provide us with information to help us to understand what it is you're importing, see if the classification information is correct, and ensure that the merchandise is compliant with U.S. laws. And so your broker is your best friend, and in some instances can be your worst enemy, to the extent that sometimes we find that there are certain customs brokers that, for whatever reason, more than likely not your shipments, but what they have a reputation with us, and we don't trust some of the information that they provide. Now, we don't tell you who to use as a customs house broker, but what we do is to tell you to do your due diligence before you start shipping your merchandise to the United States. Now, the examination process for us generally includes a couple of different parts. That process, one, is generally an electronic clearance process using one of our databases, our database called the Automated Targeting System Global. And basically what that does is that is for passengers, and then we have one for cargo, the automated targeting system for cargo. And in that system, essentially, regular importers, importers of record and things like that will develop a score within that system, which allows us to understand if you've imported multiple times, we've not found any violations, those types of things, then your merchandise is likely to be passed free and clear without having an examination. Now that doesn't happen right away, but you can imagine the amount of shipments that we receive from overseas where we have the, various companies and entities that are trying to import into the U.S. market where our concerns have been satisfied previously, and we want to focus, just as Namibian Customs does, on the commodities that require the most scrutiny. And again, first-time importers will be examined. So in addition to the computer examination, we want to make sure that it is properly classified. We want to make sure that if you're claiming a AGOA preference or GSP preference, that the commodities that you are importing meet those requirements such that we can ensure that the proper entities are receiving the proper credit. So you've got the electronic information that we look at, and then what happens is that there will more than likely, dependent upon the commodity, there will be a physical examination. Now, for those of you who have traveled through an airport recently, I'm sure you've heard the announcements that if you abandon your bag and the security finds it, it will probably be destroyed. Well, I'm not saying that customs is going to do that to your merchandise. What I'm saying is that we will examine it to the extent that we are satisfied that it is not contrary to law. So if you can, you can imagine that some things are legal in certain countries and are certainly illegal in the United States. And so if you have fruits, vegetables, plants, anything like that, be advised that our Department of Agriculture folks are very, very persistent in determining whether or not there's a potential infestation or if there's bugs in your commodity or something like that. It will more than likely be destroyed and won't be allowed to enter the commerce of the United States. Now, if in fact we find that, let's say it's been misclassified, that also can slow the processing. So you want to make sure that you're absolutely sure of what your harmonized tariff schedule numbers are and that that information is included in your paperwork and is uploaded into our systems. Now, finally, for commodities that we are really suspicious of and have some law enforcement nexus or concern, unlike many countries, customs officers don't need any special, in the US, don't need special permission to examine your merchandise. They don't have to wait for law enforcement to come. They don't have to wait for your broker to come. We will conduct the examination until we're satisfied that that merchandise is not contrary to law. So basically, the message I want to leave you with before we go to questions and whatnot is the fact that if you are a first-time importer, your merchandise will be examined. Once you develop a history of importations into the United States and most of your merchandise has been cleared and without any problems or any reason to prevent it from entering the commerce, then your stuff will be free to go. The other point that I want you to take away is that it is extremely important to have an advocate of some sort in the U.S. that is responsible for helping with the clearance of your merchandise through the customs protocols that we have in the U.S. And so with that, I'll turn it over to the chair for questions, or I can answer anything. I'm not sure what exactly the schedule is, but I've got time and I'm available to answer any specific questions that I can. And if I can't answer them, I have an ink pen and I will make sure that I write those questions down and get an answer for you. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you so much, Bryant. I think one of the things you said which I can't echo enough, is that the broker you hire can be your best friend or your biggest enemy. So I think really, again, talking from experience, you need to make sure you get your ducks in a row. And I think what we have about 10 minutes for some questions. Yes. So let me see from the floor if there's any questions to either Bryant or Tandy.
Thank you for the opportunity and thank you for the clarification. Brian, I just want to find out, we had an incident where, you know, in terms of AGOA, it's only the textiles that require the visa stamp, right? Now, we do have a consignment of marble that went out, and the US Customs requires us to endorse a visa stamp, which we currently do not have because it was not a requirement. What are we to do in order to facilitate, you know, the process of having this consignment cleared within the US, or is there something else that we can do? Perhaps just kindly advise on that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not familiar with the particular case, but if I could ask you to pass me some information on that particular shipment through Francis and the team, I'll be sure to get an answer for you. You're correct that the visa stamp is for the textile goods. I'm not quite sure what type of stamp they would be looking for on marble. I mean, if you think about it logically, right, it just doesn't really make sense. So let me get whatever paperwork you can provide through Francis and team, and we'll work to get a response for you. But I do have one follow-up question to that same issue. How long has it been on hold, and where exactly is it located?
Would you want to answer on when the export was exactly?
Yes, how long have we been holding it without release, and do you know what port it's located in the United States?
This particular consignment actually went through, and we have had some contact from our client on the other side that he has managed through a couple of struggles to claim the duty that was initially charged on this consignment. So that was basically his main concern.
So then the issue's been resolved, or do I still need to dig into it?
This specific incident was resolved, but we have other clients that are basically pressing us for evidence, and we can't think of anything else than this specific stamp that needs to be on the documentation to basically be as evidence that it is under the AGOA Act.
Okay. Well, let's go back to plan A. Send the information, let me take a look at it and try to dig in to get you some answers for your clients. Over.
Thank you, Brian. And I think that's exactly what we should do. I think, again, what I want to emphasize, we are not alone. I mean, Brian is there, there are other agencies, Tandy is here. So let's make use of whatever contacts we have to try to avoid. I hope this issue was resolved, but still it would be good to send Brian the details to see what the issue was initially. Is there any other question to either Brian or you already have the microphone? Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. My question is that I want to know whether we need to do administrative arrangement with other customs at other side. I mean, we need to exchange the stamp or the signature for those officials who authorize, or we can just export our things without sharing the stamp or sharing the signature. And the other question is that, is AGOA, can I send my things without AGOA certificate and then I will issue it at a later stage?
Was that question for me?
Yes, Brian,
Oh.
these questions were for you.
Okay. Thank you for the question. Do I understand correctly that you are asking, can you send your merchandise without the AGOA stamp if it's not textiles, or if it is textiles, of course you would have to, right?
Okay, let's say the company didn't register at that time. And then once he realized that he's supposed to attach a certificate of origin, and then he come later and apply and we issue a certificate, should be able to be submit that certificate on that consignment.
Yes, you should be able to submit that document through your broker, because of the fact that if the documentation is not in order, we're not going to allow it to pass. So in this particular instance, I would say that if you got the document after the fact, you absolutely want to give it to the person handling your merchandise so that they can, take care of the paperwork in the proper fashion.
Yeah, I've seen that. And since Francis is my boss, I'm going to let us skip the others. Francis, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Gerrit. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm on the move. So I just wanted to mention that I think there's an underlying question, I think, in terms of how do you claim that a product is AGOA eligible. So I think the certificate of origin is part of that, but also on the documents that are accompany your shipment, you need to complete them correctly so that the importer can claim the duties. So those documents, again, I think to Brian's earlier point, you need to have people that know what they're doing so that they correctly complete the documents to avoid not being able to claim for AGOA. Thank you.
Thank you, Francis. Next question. Go ahead,
Yes,
please.
so I wanted to find out, is there someone like maybe the Trade Hub who could recommend some brokers that would be reliable?
I think, to be frank, I think Brian kind of answered it. Do your due diligence. In other words, check. But I think, again, from my own experience, when I export, I check with other people who are in the exporting business. Who are they working with in the US? So I think it is really part of doing your due diligence. But maybe now I'm starting to be Brian. Brian, please go ahead.
Sir, you're doing a fine job. Let me tell you, that's absolutely correct, because of the fact that, first of all, it's against our policies for me to recommend one U.S. business over another. And so I wouldn't be able to give you the name of a specific broker and whatnot that might be able to help you. The other challenge is, again, you have specialists in particular areas that are in, the ports where you might be entering. So again, that research is going to be critical to facilitating your merchandise. And again, there are folks that are exporting out of Namibia that have been very successful getting their commodities to market, and I would check with them. Over.
Thank you, Brian. I mean, the other thing is that normally the company you do export to will also have an ID which broker to use. There's another question there.
Yes, following up to this question, I think what we really want to know, is there possibly on a US website a place where one can verify whether or not a broker would be accredited with your agency?
I believe there is a website. I don't have that information in front of me, but I will use my pen and write that down to get the answer back to Francis. Thank you.
Thank you. My second question is basically, is there current talks on a medium or high level between the US and Namibia where the customs agencies are talking to one another? Actually, the question that's still not unanswered is whether or not the US needs to get samples of their stamps and signatures that are authorized to clear a shipment for export from the Namibian side to go into the US market.
Brian, did you get that?
I did, and I'm not aware of any discussions that are ongoing for that particular issue. I haven't heard anything from my colleagues at the embassy. Usually the economics office or the commercial office would be involved with that, and no one's contacted me. So if I'll stand to be corrected if in fact those discussions are happening with between those offices, but there's nothing going on between US CBP and Namibia Customs that I'm aware of at this point.
Thank you. I think Janet.
Yes, I'm just adding on to that question because I know like with other agreements that we have, usually we would exchange stamps and also the stamps with the trading partner. So that's why that question was posted, was just to make sure that whether as Namibia we need to exchange our stamps with AGOA, with the US, and also the signatures that are supposed to be on the documentation. So maybe if you can consult your colleagues and just revert back to us on that one, it will really be helpful. Yeah, because we want to know, because that's one requirement, and then maybe the other requirement is the rules of origin certificate. Thank you.
Okay, I think we have been given time up. We are supposed to have our tea break. And to be frank, if there's any issues which are not really clear, channel them through Tanya. They'll come to Francis, they'll come to Brian. Again, like I can't emphasize enough, you are not completely alone in this game. There are people here to help. And the same thing applies to the AGOA steering committee, which is here. That's why we're having this session to see that if there are issues which are not clear, try to sort them out here. And I always say, if you're getting into exports, you are going to pay learning money, like it or not, but try to pay as little as possible. So the more you know ahead of the game, the better you are prepared. So I can't, that really is my advice as well. So with that, Brian, I think, thank you so much for attending this session. And any queries, questions will come through USA Trade Hub, but possibly in future as well through the AGOA steering committee here, because they will be the point where questions would be raised as well. With that, I think we are going to have 15 minutes break. Okay, so we have a 15 minutes break. Once again, Brian, thanks. Once again, Tandy, thank you very much. And let's have a brief break. Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your conference.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay. Please, if I can have your attention. We are going to split up in 3 groups. And I have given the groups a name. So one group is called Marble Group. So we know where Jaco is going to be. One is Namibia Mills. And the third one is National Organic Association plus Mediplant. So these are the 3 groups. What we are going to do, actually, I will ask Iola to put other people in the group so that we know who is going to be where. What we are going to do basically is to answer two questions. The first question is really, where do we see the opportunities? Where do we see the opportunities? And the second question is going to be, where do you see a role for the steering committee, AGOA steering committee? I think I explained it before. USA Trade Hub is closing end of this month officially, implementation. And whatever work we have done, we want to see how we hand it over to a Namibian entity. So the two questions we have is, what opportunities do you see in terms of trying to get export going under the AGOA regime? The second question is, what possible role do you see for the steering committee? And when you're looking at roles for the steering committee, let's try to keep it simple. The steering committee is not full-time employed to be a steering committee. They have their own work cut out for them in their ministries or organizations. So let's make it quite, I call it, compact and simple. So let's not ask them to build another Eiffel Tower here in Namibia, yeah, but just looking at what are the areas where you feel in making use of these opportunities, where can the AGOA steering committee come in? And that will give them some kind of a roadmap going forward. And that's what we want you to do. So we have three groups. Like I said, we have given them names. Already we know some of the people who are going to be in what. So I think, Yola, can you put the rest of the people in their groups, in the three groups?
Yes, since I think we are already sitting, can we, for those who are not in a group, we are going to have the Marble group here, this group 1. Marble, yeah, Marble group. We are going to have NTF member in this Marble group, and NTF, one member will be on the Namibia Mill groups, because we cannot sit in one group from the same. I think you can join, Mr. Kabete, you can join the other group. Namibia Mills can be here. That's group B. We should have MIT officials in this group. Janet, maybe you can come here. And maybe Mills. The third group is, oh yeah, Organic Association and Mediplans. Yes, Ekatu can move into this group. And this is supposed to be group. We're only having 3 groups. So we are going to have NAMRA joining the Marble, and another NAMRA joining joining the Organic Association. I think Elise can join this organic. NSI.
Now our Namibia Mills group is defeated.
It's only 2. No, NTF and AMTA can join this group. Yes, Namibia Mills.
Are the groups complete? We've got 4 people here. We've got 5 people there.
4.
And we've got
5.
About 6 people there. Okay, so please, is it clear the questions I asked? What we want you to address? I think what we want to do is to have a discussion, and then one of you list what you see as the opportunities, and then you also have a discussion and see where do you think the AGOA steering committee can be of assistance. So time, as usual, is not on our side. So we want to then have brief presentations at 5 o'clock. So we have half an hour for each group. So see how we can briefly agree. What do we see as the major opportunities? But just as important, what do you see as a possible role for the steering committee going forward? I think we already mentioned there could be an area of information, there could be a contact point, but I'm not going to preempt. So it's really for each of the group, but let's have these discussions, and at 5 o'clock we have brief presentations.
Elise, I think we don't have MIT in this group. Maybe you can join the MIT or SADC. NSI can, yes. What do you want to rotate? Then you can just, yeah, in that.
Sorry, for people who are with us virtually, please do the same, but put it in the chat box. So see if you as a company or agency are with us virtually, in the chat box, briefly list where you see the major opportunities and where you see a possible role for the AGOA steering committee. Thanks.
Right, now we can start. We are just done with the work and we are going to hear what the Organic Association Group going to tell us on the opportunity to export for Namibia, as well as what are the role, anticipated role of the AGOA National Steering Committee. I'll give it to Eckart to just present in 3 minutes.
Thank you, Yola. That's a tall task, but thank you to my team members who are very, very engaged. So because I'm left-handed, I start at the bottom. With opportunities, we of course want to increase export. We want to have better prices for our products, our local products, and we want to find and exploit niche markets. That's actually something that goes up to the steering committee roles. Some of the opportunities that we see for Namibian products, I'm going to start at the top left of our list here at the bottom. Processed meats such as dry sausage and biltong have really no equal in the US market. They have beef jerky, but it's not the same thing. Crafts and jewelry, we've got some beautiful craftspeople here in Namibia. We've got the raw products, not only precious and semi-precious stones, but also gold, Namibian gold. Of course, me being an organic beef farmer, that had to be on the list. We see an opportunity in cosmetics, soaps, and makeup. I think many tourists are amazed at our Ovahimba women wearing the beautiful makeup. That might be an opportunity. Of course, our indigenous grains. I'm sorry to have to steal your thunder. Natural oils. We've got some indigenous plants that have beautiful cold pressed oils that can be used in the cosmetics industry, possibly even in the food industry. Then medical plants. Of course, Mediplants was part of our team. And then there's an opportunity with Ngabas, Kalahari truffle. Thank you to our friend from Botswana who alerted me to the possibility there. Thank you, Gerard. Good. The role of the steering committee in order to make this happen. Again, I'm going to start from the top. Actually, one of the things that my team wanted me to start with is actually to create a database of available products to willing buyers. So have something online where people could tap into and see what is available in Namibia, who is ready for export, who is close to ready for export, to create that database. Certification assistance, as you know, especially on the food side, but all the others, there's a multitude of certifications required to enter the US market to make sure that the certification can be facilitated and assisted with. A starter kit for willing producers. Basically, it has to be product relevant. What applies to foodstuffs is not relevant to somebody exporting a rock. A reference database. The current existing producers are generally willing to share who have they had good experiences with, to see if they can have references out there for already people that they are using, that are familiar with the Namibian conditions and so on. So to have that database established and online. To also identify knowledgeable entities within Namibia. Technical support as far as some of the processing is concerned for foodstuffs, preservation, how to properly interpret restricted substances and ingredients. Then, of course, market research, that goes without saying. Trade facilitation, this is a big one for us. We want to ensure that a willing producer can actually trade successfully overseas in the US. And our thought was there to have some type of trade missions possibly go over to the US, or possibly attending some fairs. One of the things that I remembered was the fancy food fair that was convention, fancy food convention. So in order to do that, we have to identify relevant fairs. And Yen, one thing that's on the other side that we didn't have space for anymore, to possibly have some research and development on some of the possibilities that we have with our indigenous products. For example, the oils that we have, maybe they're quite suitable for frying if they have a particular high a smoke point. That would be something interesting in the food industry. And I believe my time is just about up. Any questions? Okay, Yalu, who's next?
I don't know where the microphone. I think one of the things, if we want support with certification or product testing, one of the things we, and I'm sure you also would agree with that, is that we do that on the basis of a cost share. So that we say skin in the game. Yeah, this thing of always getting everything done for free. It's when you put at least part your own money in, and you know that there is real commitment. So again, I think, but I'm sure that would be the plan. I think you've come up with quite a number of opportunities and stuff for the roadmap. The nice thing is that I'm from Botswana. I'm not from Namibia. I'm not in the steering committee. But I think what we will do, let's also listen to the others and see what they bring to the table. Can we ask the next group? Namibia Males Group. Who is the presenter?
All right, thank you. I'm right-handed, so I'll stand this side. Yeah, so the first question, I think what we looked at is value addition, and that is particularly in the agro-processing. This is for local products. So what we discussed here is to add as much value as possible to all the locally produced products or even the natural products, because we find that in Namibia we are blessed with so many natural products. We can think of products like monkey oranges. They could be processed, canned, and then exported. And the second point is market expansion. We can as well look at, other than just focusing on one market for those products that are processed, we can actually look at how we can expand the market, because if you only depend on one market, one day that market will fall, and then you have nowhere to sell your products. And then the third point is we actually suggesting to conduct a market intelligence study to determine the demand for local products. So here what we are saying is, as much as we are producing whatever we are producing, if we don't have the market for that, we can't sell it anyway. So if we conduct this study, it will establish the products that we actually have to venture in, because once we know, we can produce, and then the market will be there waiting for us. And then on the second question about the committee now, we looked at the development or creation of an information desk for export information purposes. So whoever is in the business of exporting, when they have products, then they can just go and then get all the information they need from one point. And then another one for the committee is for them to create beneficiation through the value chain. Other than having only those, well up businesses to benefit, we want to see everyone benefiting. An example of the monkey oranges, we know these ones, they are just in the natural forest. No one is planting them, but someone must go and fetch them. But these guys, when they go and fetch them, you'll find that the middleman who is buying from these people is actually the one who is going to, to get much of the cream from the transaction, while they just get little. So we are looking at the committee to also look into this so that those people at the end of the day, they also get something out. Thank you.
It's funny you mention monkey orange. In Setswana, we call it mogorogorwane. I know about it. It's actually very nice. I think your list is, I think, information hub desk. It's really, and again, I think as you as a trade hub, we want to leave as much as of the contracts and the presentations behind with the steering committee. And I think, again, if the new company comes and say, where do I get the CEO? Okay, refer them to Tandy and her team. If there's other issues, the trade attaché, Mr. Bryant. So really try to have information available for businesses or companies or organizations coming to you. Yeah, the trade beneficiation. Yeah, of course, the end of the day, we need to get more people to benefit. I think I will ask the last group to present. Okay, Tandy, you are now in charge of marble.
Thank you. Group Marvel, what we said in terms of opportunities is yes. Currently, we have a few commodities that we are exporting, but there is a possibility to include, natural products, other elements as well, or other commodities, just to expand the market base. That at the end of the day, Namibia is known as a country that exports products of note, to be listed amongst the top 10 countries that export to the US. What we have also identified is the aspect of financial gain. Now, the issue of financial gain, yes, it is for the exporter that they would gain financially in terms of reduced rates once they export into the US market, but not only for the exporter. The government, on the other hand, remember I'm from Namra, the government, on the other hand, would then also benefit in terms of export levies for certain raw products that are exported, like your marble, your diamonds, all these products. If countries export under AGOA, they would create, or they would build that comparative advantage in the sense that they would be known out there, and they would have that advantage to say that if they would be known, and if somebody wants a product in that line, they would obviously be the first to come to mind because they are known globally. In terms of AGOA, again, the aspect of job creation, because for us to export, some form of work would go into either harvesting, either manufacturing, and that in the end would create jobs for the Namibian nation, which would also contribute to economic growth for us. Then we have said there is an opportunity in terms of value chain addition, as well as value chain creation for the products and for the exporters, or the goods that are ultimately leaving our country to the US market. Yes, for a product to be accepted in the US market, it must conform to certain international standards, certain ISO requirements, certain SPS requirements, and that would then also be beneficial to the exporter, because the mere fact that they have access and they conform to international standards would mean that not only would they be known in terms of export to the US, but we can even export to other countries, or even, put Namibia out there as a country of format that export goods that conform to international standards. And that ties to the fact that the companies that so export would be internationally exposed and known, to the extent that perhaps, I think it was mentioned that some of the countries that export are listed on Amazon. That can also happen to products that are exported from the Namibian market. In terms of the role of the steering committee, the role of the steering committee we have said is that the biggest role would be to disseminate information, trade-related information, make the probable exporters know what is required from them, what are the possibilities or perhaps possible markets that they can access in the US. If and when they perhaps have export queries, they would know where to go to. Similarly, there would be a liaison with the stakeholders. For instance, if a commodity is exported to the US and there's a query at the port of, where is the port? Maryland or wherever, I do not know. Yeah, but then the committee would act as a liaison to ensure that the product finally reach its destined market. And then the committee would also have the role of building capacity amongst the Namibian exporters to enlighten them in terms of what is required, how and when certain things should be done if and when they are exporting. And yes, the committee would also have the role or the mandate or to implement the AGOA action plan and identify possible trade opportunities, like do market research, see where there is a need for certain Namibian products, and then inform the Namibian manufacturers, exporters, etc., so that they then make use of these trade opportunities. And also the other role is trade encouragement. What we basically mean there is to say that we need to have like a database of all the exports and then share these success stories to entice probable exporters so that they make use of the benefits under AGOA. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think in a way, if I look through what comes through, there's a number of areas where the AGOA steering committee can actually play a very important role. A hub of information, but also a hub where if they don't have the information, at least they know where to point to. And I know we're talking about identifying marketing opportunities. I think what you mentioned here is like liaising with other stakeholders. I think sometimes you see in government, one department is almost working on its own. Another government department is doing something similar, but they don't even know about each other. So that kind of role, putting them together, again, I think is very important. So I think what we will do, but I'm looking at my co-facilitator, at the end of this workshop, we will compile whatever has been put. We will also include some of the comments made virtually on the chat box. And I say we, I mean Tanya and her team. She will work together with Ayola with getting a roadmap. What now next? And yeah, like I said, USA Trade Hub is coming to an end, but we never know. There's always another program coming, and one day you might see us again. But for now, this is where we are. And really, I can't emphasize enough, it is us to make it work here. Private sector working closely with government and government support agencies. We pull all the same way. I think we can actually see some of the dreams. I think we mentioned the vision. I think you mentioned 2 exporters, another one mentioned 5, but let's see what happens. And I think from my side, unless there's any burning question, I want to hand over to, I think, Jeanette to close. I got a burning question from, okay. We have the person in charge of ECHA.
I see that this workshop is very, very important, capacity building. But I have a question like, how do you sensitize the people on the grassroots in this good informations? How is that? Because it's very important. We are talking about unemployment. And we want to develop the people on the grassroots. So how do we reach them? Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, even though you're not the youngest, you're also still very fresh. What I want to say, and I believe in it myself, and I've seen it myself, is that through some of the work which will take place or is taking place in developing some of the products, whether it's agricultural products or whether it's some of the cosmetic products, when that market is being developed, that is the time it's much easier to go to a community and say, oh, now we have a market for monkey nut, a monkey apple, whatever it's called, and really mobilize people to come and harvest or to come and produce. So I agree. Sometimes we talk a lot, so-called high people here in Windhoek, and it doesn't filter down. But I think it's our role in the development of the export to really see where we can bring in the communities. I want to talk from a personal experience. When I first started organizing my harvesters for Devil's Claw, we come to this village, at least we were coming with something tangible. Nobody had bought Devil's Claw for the last 10 years. And the last time they bought, they sold it on credit and never got paid. So when we actually went to that village and yeah, they issued over 100 permits, and you come back after 3 months and actually put money in people's pockets, that is probably the best part of your job. But you can only do it if you have a market for the product. You can only do it if you have developed a market. So this is where, and you can only develop that market if number one, kind of identified, or you get support from the right government agencies to develop that. That's my brief feedback. So can I hand over to Jeanette? There you are.
Thank you very much. As we are coming to the end of the second session of our AGOA capacity building workshop, we have our first capacity building workshop, which was part 1. This is actually part 2 because it was divided in 2 sessions. Part 1 was on the 8th of June. So we are now coming to the end of part 2, but we are not yet, it's not yet done because we still have to go for the networking session. I would like to thank, on behalf of our ministry, I would like to thank the US government for the funding and this opportunity. And I also like to thank the US Trade Hub for this assistance, all this technical work that they've really provided. And I hope that our relationship is not going to end by the end of June, because I was told that we are aware that by end of June, this project is going to end. But I'm hoping that we will still continue our relationship with the US Trade Hub beyond June, beyond the end of June, at least in terms of maybe if we need any assistance or maybe information or any technical advice, because we still want to continue with the work of the AGOA committee. We don't just want it to, we don't want it to end after the projects have ended. And I would also like to thank everyone that have availed their precious time to be part of these 2 capacity building workshop. Those that were here in person and also that have joined us virtually. Thank you very much. It was really great having you. And I know that I hope that everybody will take something from this workshop, because when we started on the 8th, we did different presentations. There was a presentation on it was more on an introduction in terms of the AGOA overview. And then we had some statistics in terms of the exports between Namibia and the US. And then we had another presentations that give information on the requirements when you are exporting products to the US. And today we had more presentations, which also now it was a continuation, which we had a presentation from NAMRA. At least I know that in the past, our office was also bombarded with some inquiries in terms of where do people get certificate of origins when you want to export to the US. So NAMRA managed to clarify that inquiry, and they really give a good presentation in terms of the requirements that you need for you to attain that certificate. And also we had the presentation on the border inspection. We informed that if you are a first import, if you are exporting for the first time to the US, it doesn't matter, but you have to make sure that all your documentation are in order and that your shipment will be inspected. They said for the first time, you should expect it that your shipment will be checked thoroughly. So actually that was good information. And furthermore, I'd like to thank everyone again. And I hope that all our exporters, because one of the purpose of having this type of workshops is actually to provide more information to capacitate our stakeholders so that they can increase their export to the US. So I hope with this workshop, at least we'll have some exporters that will be able now to export to the US as one of the objective of the AGOA utilization strategy is to increase the export of Namibian products to the US. So we are hoping from this workshop, at least we have managed to provide the right information that will allow some of the exporters at least to have some consignment, even if they are just small consignment, at least some consignment that can move, that they can move and export to the US. And I would like to thank everyone, those that are virtually attending with us. And I think for those that are virtually attending with us, I think this is the end of the program. But for those that are attending in person, we still have a networking session event that we have to go attend, and we'll also be getting some more information on the lesson learned in terms of exporting products to the US from our colleague from Botswana. And with that, I would like to thank everyone. Thank you, everyone. And we are now closing the session.